This video is going to help you get your aim from being like this at 17% to this at 33.3%. Now, all we used is a few simple attachments you can use on every single assault rifle inside Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer, and it works pretty much every single time on all the ARs, and we're going to show you what these attachments are. Now, we'll first start off with the M4, which is the first gun you actually unlock in this game, and you can level up. So the main attachments we'll go through, which will actually help you control recoil on every single AR. If you do enjoy this style of content, don't forget to subscribe as we try to reach our goal of 50k. But the first one is actually a muzzle here. Now, the muzzle you want to get to, now obviously it's going to take a bit of grinding to level up your weapons, and if you do want to level up your weapons, we already have a video on the channel on how to do that as fast as possible. But the main one you want here is the Komodo heavy muzzle, and this is the best one at controlling the horizontal recoil of your weapon, and it's the most important one here when it comes to controlling the side to side on pretty much every AR, because that is something that is hard to control with pretty much any gun. I've tried pretty much every single attachment in the muzzle category to see which one was the best, and this one came out on top every single time. So you definitely want to make sure you're using the Komodo heavy. Then when it comes to the barrel, now this is obviously going to change from gun to gun, but obviously that is what we're going to show you throughout this video, and we'll also give you some tests as well with the weapons on the firing range. But the barrel you want to use here is actually the high tower 20-inch barrel, which is the best for the M4 at the moment. And then when it comes to the underbarrel, again, this will be the same for every single weapon. So without a doubt, you put the same muzzle and the same underbarrel on, you'll get the perfect recoil control. You actually want to use the Ripper underbarrel. Now, this again is one of the best attachments to use. I've tried every single underbarrel in this category as well to see which ones control the recoils the best. And even these ones here, so the lock grip, the Merc grip, they don't really help with recoil. Recoil steadiness isn't actually that important. The main one that is really important here is actually recoil stabilization. That is the main pro that we're looking for. But again, I feel like the Ripper have just felt the best to me on most guns. So now another attachment we can't actually do without here is a laser attachment, and the main one here is the FSS OLE laser. Now, this is going to help with the aiming stability, which is what we were getting with some of the other attachments, but it also helps with aim down sight time, which is really, really handy because a lot of attachments in this game con aim down sight time. So this is something you definitely need. Personally, these are the main 4 attachments that I put on pretty much every AR in this game now. So we'll show you a quick test in the firing range with this build that I've shown you. So as you can see here, super easy to control recoil. And the movement when you're actually moving around feels relatively decent as well. Obviously, we are only in the firing range right now, but as you can see here, not really missing any shots with this build. Next up, we have the TAQ-56, and very similarly to the M4, the main attachments you want to put on here is that Komodo heavy. You also want to make sure you put on the Ripper underbarrel. Again, this works on every AR. And then for the laser, you want to put on the FSS laser. Now, when it comes to this gun, the barrels do not help with recoil control, so we don't really need to choose them. And then the cons, again, are not really going to help us too much, and the benefits aren't really that great either. So there's no real reason to use a barrel on this weapon in particular. Now, personally, if I was to choose an attachment, the one I would recommend to use here is actually the one that's going to help with aim down sight speed, is the TV X-Line Pro stock. I think this is solid. The brute stock is also really good, but it cons your movement a bit, and especially because this is multiplayer, you still want to have a bit of movement even with your assault rifle. So I think the X-Line is the best attachment here. Just make sure you do not choose the combat grip. For some reason, this messes with your aiming stability a lot, so just don't choose this one. Now showing you this gun in the firing range, as you can see here, super easy to use. Even at long range, you're not really missing any shots. This is a very easy gun to use to begin with, so you're not really needing to control for much. That's me actually just having wonky aim there, but as you can see, definitely makes the gun a lot easier to use. So with the KASTOV, again, you want to use the same attachment. So this time it's called the TYLR8, but it's the one that helps with horizontal recoil control. Then we're using the Ripper underbarrel once again. When it comes to laser, again, the FSS OLE laser. And then for the barrel, we want to actually choose the 406mm barrel. I actually think it's the best option here. I've tested both of these, and the longer barrel just doesn't feel nearly as good. Plus you definitely want to still keep some movement in your weapon anyway. And then the final attachment, again, is going to come down to personal preference. You could choose something that's going to help with movement speed. You could choose something that's going to help a bit more recoil if you really need it. So now we're testing this gun. As you can see, at close range, super easy. But at long range, definitely easier. Now, obviously, it's not going to be like no recoil whatsoever because it has got a bit of recoil with this gun. But it's definitely going to land a few more shots than we did before. Next up, we have the LACHMANN-556 assault rifle. Now, this is the one that allows you to unlock the MP5 at some point. But like I said, again, what you want to do here, again, is use that Komodo muzzle. You want to choose the FSS laser again. You want to choose the Ripper underbarrel once again. And then when it comes to the barrel this time, the best one in my opinion is the LACHMANN Nova. Now, obviously the other ones might help a bit more with recoil and all that good stuff, but we don't really need it to be insanely good for multiplayer. So this is definitely good enough. And again, we'll show you the testing in just a second. And then when it comes to other attachments, personally, I would choose the 40 round mags, but you could choose whatever you want really. You could choose an optic if you really need that, but the iron sights in this game are relatively clean anyway. But let's show you this gun in the firing range once again. As you can see here, super accurate weapon. It's an easy enough gun to use to begin with, to be perfectly honest. But again, this is just going to help make sure you land all those shots at range. So next up, we have the STB-556 or the AUG, depending on what you want to call it, of course. But this, again, we're using the same attachments. The laser is called something different this time, but it's the third laser in that helps aim down sight, aiming stability, and sprint to fire speed. And then when it comes to the barrel, actually I think the best one is the Gorilla barrel. This is the one that feels the best to me. It doesn't con your movement nearly as much as it says it does, but it does give you some decent recoil control, and it's actually better than the suppressed one in my opinion. So I do like the Gorilla barrel. I think it's the best option for multiplayer at the moment. And then again, with the final attachment, you can choose whatever you want here. You could choose something that will help you with a bit more movement speed, aim down sight. You could choose something with a bit more control when it comes to the obviously recoil of the weapon. But personally, I would like to go for a larger mag. But this gun in particular, I do think you need an optic. I do not like the iron sights on this weapon. So you want to go with something like a reflex optic here. So getting into the firing range now, testing this gun out at range, at close range as well. As you can see, super easy to use. The optic is super clean as well, which helps out a ton. But a really nice gun to use. And I actually really do like this AUG more than I've liked AUGs in previous Modern Warfare. The next gun is the M16, and this is where the logic kind of flies out the window a little bit, because this is a burst fire weapon, so what works on full auto guns doesn't necessarily work on burst fire weapons. So with this one, you actually want to use the muzzle that is right after the Komodo Heavy, which actually helps with vertical recoil. So this is going to help with the obviously straight up and down recoil of the weapon. In this case, the barrels absolutely help a ton when it comes to recoil control on this gun. The carbine shroud is the best by far out of all of them at controlling recoil. And then we are still using the laser for its benefits of aiming stability and aim down sight speed. But of course, when it comes to underbarrels here, I don't really feel like a lot of these even help with this weapon in particular. Like, aiming stability is always going to help make sure you land those shots on target. But if you are in kind of like close to kind of medium range, which is kind of 90% of gunfights in multiplayer, then you don't really even need that, especially with a burst fire weapon. I would recommend taking an optic with this gun for sure, because I don't really like the iron sights at all. My favorite is the Cronin Mini Pro. I think is probably one of the best optics in the game. And then you probably want to choose a stock, maybe for something like a bit more aim down sight speed, maybe a bit more recoil control in general with the factory. Again, the underbarrels I don't feel like help too much, so maybe the stock here will help us out a bit more in the firing range. So now testing this gun out in the firing range here. As you can see, the barrel helps out an absolute ton when it comes to this gun in particular. Now, some of the other guns, when it comes to fully automatic weapons, I feel like you could probably do without a barrel entirely, as long as you had the 3 attachments that I mentioned. But with this gun in particular, you do definitely need the barrel on there. It's very important. Next up, we have the KASTOV-74U. Now, this is a bit of a weird one because I technically class this as an SMG, and from the attachments and the way they've set this up, it pretty much is an SMG, but they've put it in the AR category for some weird reason. Now, I don't know if this is by mistake or whatever, but it is in the AR category. Now, Personally, I would just build this for kind of speed and an SMG. We will make a whole separate video on that one. But if you do want to build this, then I'll show you the actual class setup. So I'd still use the Komodo Heavy, in my opinion. I still think it's going to help with the recoil. I wouldn't choose any barrel here because none of them really help enough. Now, they're going to con your movement, but they'll also give you recoil, or some of them will give you recoil control, but you don't really need that much recoil control with this gun anyway. I do still think that the phase 3 grip for this would be the best option. Now, there's no ripper under barrel for this one, but the phase 3 grip has similar attributes. Now, when it comes to the rest of the attachments, like I said, I would build this for speed anyway, so I'll be building it for aim down sight time, and I'd also be using the R7 stock for the aim down sight speed and the sprint speed. So that's what I would personally use, and then you could choose whatever other attachment you want to use. So here we are in the firing range, testing out the 74U. As you can see, the recoil is actually not too bad on this gun, especially if you're trying to use it as an SMG anyway. Even at range, it's pretty decent with this kind of movement as build. So it's not too bad. Like I said, it's not really much of an AR though. Last up, we have the KASTOV-545, which in my opinion is basically an AN-94. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not really good with guns here. But again, when it comes to the muzzle, you want to choose that Komodo Heavy once again. Under barrel, again, you want to choose the Ripper. And again, for the laser, you want to choose the OLE laser. Now, when it comes to the barrel for this one, I actually do think the 406mm barrel is the best, which is the IG K30. Now, you can use the KAS as well, but in my opinion, I feel like this one feels a little bit better overall. And then the last attachment's up to yourself. I would personally choose an optic on this gun as well, because the optics or iron sights are not that good, especially for range. And again, testing this gun out on the range here, as you can see, pretty much no recoil with this gun here. Once again with this build. So like I said, as long as you keep the base attachments kind of similar, like I've shown you with the main attachments you want to be using, then you'll always get a super accurate gun when it comes to ARs, doesn't matter what. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.